It's surprisingly easy to mod your 3DS. This phrase has been repeated endlessly by the 3DS modding community over the last couple of years, and this phrase has become especially prevalent when Nintendo pulled the plug on the eShop back in April of 2023, signifying Nintendo's departure from officially supporting the 3DS. Well, luckily over time, modders have stepped up to the plate to preserve and expand the 3DS's legacy. And now, it's surprisingly easy to experience these changes firsthand, because in 30 minutes, I went from using a regular stock 3DS to a system that is now capable of running a ridiculous amount of games, any piece of software I'd ever want, and way more than I could ever imagine. At this point, my 3DS feels like a completely new system, and it's all because I modded my 3DS. If you've been looking for an excuse to dive back into your 3DS library, or even if you've never owned a 3DS but are looking to buy one, modding a 3DS provides so many benefits, upgrades, and quality of life improvements that you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't mod one. From the ability to download and play tens of thousands of games across various platforms, revive old 3DS services, play on custom online servers, or even experience these games on the big screen, a modded 3DS can do it all. After a few months of exploring the ins and outs of everything my 3DS is now capable of, I'm ready to share everything I've found. This video will cover the fundamentals on how to get started modding a 3DS, the 6 main apps that come installed after modding, and 15 unique and practical reasons why I believe modding a 3DS is still worth it today. Everything in this video will have chapters if you want to skip around, and links will be in the description for just about anything I talk about in this video, so please go check it out. With all that being said, let's dive into the huge world of 3DS modding. So let's start by discussing the process of modding a 3DS. For starters, the only equipment you'll need is a 3DS, an SD card reader, and a micro SD card. For SD card readers, you can purchase one off Amazon for as little as $10, but just make sure it has a micro SD card slot. Pretty much every reader includes one now, but just double check to make sure. For the micro SD card, at the very least I suggest you pick up a 128GB card, as in my opinion, this will provide you with more than enough storage for any game or software you're looking to download. For context, I've downloaded 27 3DS games, 21 eShop games, 20 DS games, some DSiWare and Virtual Console games, a whole bunch of Homebrew, and I still have over 78 gigs. So 128 gigs will last you a long time, and the cards are super cheap too. You can find them on Amazon for around 10 to 20 bucks now. I'll leave my preferred picks in the description below. As for the system itself, any 3DS can be modded regardless of its model or region. They're all compatible. And modding the system itself is, well, surprisingly easy. And that's because of a website called 3DS Hacks Guide. This is the only guide you'll need for the entire modding process. It's a simple step-by-step guide that walks you through exactly what you need to do to get your 3DS running with custom firmware. The guide will even explain specific terminology if you're not too tech savvy, and will provide you with specific instructions based on the exact 3DS model and version number you have. Basically, have you ever built a Lego set? If so, congratulations, you're qualified. As long as you can follow directions, you're good. But please, I beg you, only use the 3DS Hacks Guide for modding. Try not to use any video guides because they have the risk of becoming outdated when new software updates arrive, thus giving you inaccurate information. This guide contains the most up-to-date info on everything you need to know, and it's being maintained by modders who have contributed to the modding scene themselves. So I trust them, they know what they're talking about. Also, if you're looking to buy a 3DS soon and you want to save some money, remember when I said that any 3DS can be modded regardless of its region? Well, that's because once the system's modded, the custom firmware disables region locking, meaning you'll be able to play any 3DS game regardless of its region. So you could buy a Japanese 3DS, which is significantly cheaper than a US model, mod it, and you'd still have the ability to play your US region games, or any English game for that matter, on a 3DS that doesn't break the bank. However, the UI will still be in Japanese since you're playing on a Japanese 3DS, and you can't change the language in the system settings. But if you're not interested in picking up a copy of Genki and learning an entire new language, there is a way to change the UI to English through something called a region change hack. Now, this does come with the downside of losing access to Nintendo services that use a Nintendo Network ID, such as the eShop for re-downloading software and game updates, system transfers, and Pokemon Bank. Now personally, I region changed my 3DS because I really wanted an English UI, and honestly, the modding scene has matured so much that there's just about software that solves every downside that I just mentioned on that list. So you're not really losing out on much anymore. Regardless, going through the region change hack is all up to your preference, and you can still play all of your English games or any region games after you mod the 3DS because it's running on custom firmware that disables the region locking. If you're still interested though, I'll include some links to more info regarding this hack in the description. After you follow the 3DS hacks guide, your 3DS will look exactly how it was before, except now it'll be running on custom firmware called Luma. Custom firmware is a modded version of a device's OS, which in the 3DS's case means it provides new features and unlocks hidden functionality of the system that wasn't available to consumers before. And if you followed the 3DS hacks guide up to this point, you should have the inclusion of 6 new apps on your home screen. FPI is a title manager and file browser that lets you browse to your SD card's file directory, and it's how you install these files called CTR Importable Archive Files, or CIA files for short. Essentially, a CIA file can be any piece of software that, once downloaded, will appear on the home screen of the 3DS. And FPI is used to install these CIA files. And yes, they're actually called CIA files. The acronym happened to be a coincidence when the developers named these files, and so as a joke, they decided to name the companion app FBI. It's not like the app has an actual affiliation with the FBI or anything, that'd be ridiculous. What's even more useful is that you can install CIA files directly through FBI's QR code reader. So if you find some software on someone's GitHub page that contains a QR code, scan it with FBI and it'll start downloading. FBI is also great for moving and deleting software and checking your remaining SD card storage space. The Homebrew Launcher app, as the name suggests, lets you launch any Homebrew software that's downloaded as a .3dsx format. And if you're confused by the word Homebrew, Homebrew is simply any unofficial software made by developers that opens your 3DS up to a wide variety of new features. Homebrew could be games, apps, tools, whatever really. And the nice thing about Homebrew is that the most popular 3DS Homebrew can be found on the next included app, Universal Updater. Universal Updater is the hub for downloading and updating Homebrew. Think of it as an app store. A ton of the Homebrew I'll showcase in this video comes from this place. It's an extremely convenient app that will let you download and update Homebrew directly onto your 3DS as a CIA file or as a .3dsx file for Homebrew Launcher. This app is convenient because it eliminates the need to search online for the Homebrew yourself, download the files, take your SD card out, plug it into your PC, and manually place the files in the right locations on your SD card. All of that work is done for you right here on this app. But if you do need to manually move files across your PC to your SD card, that's where FTPD comes in. FTPD is a file transfer app that allows your 3DS to connect to your PC over your local network, so you can add files onto your 3DS without having to take the SD card out. This is especially useful if you have the new series of 3DS systems that have their SD card slots located underneath the backplate. That way you don't need to unscrew the backplate every time you need to take the card out, which is a huge time saver. As for the last two apps, Anemone is the go-to customization app used to install custom themes, badges, and splash screens to the 3DS, and Checkpoint is used to make backups of your game saves and to install cheat codes. I'll go more in depth with these two apps in a little bit. There's also God Mode 9, which is a powerful file browser used to modify everything on your system. There's a variety of features here you can take advantage of, including the ability to dump your physical 3DS and DS games, but the most important feature to note is the ability to create a backup of your NAND. The NAND is a memory chip stored inside your 3DS that contains all of your system's essential files, the stock apps, and all of your system configuration settings. Making a backup of your NAND is essential because if you end up bricking your device, a backup NAND will get your 3DS up and running again. However, if you brick your system and you don't have a backup, well... Luckily, the 3DS Hacks Guide includes a section where you create this backup during the modding process, so you should already have this backup. But just remember to move that backup off of your 3DS and onto a few safe locations like somewhere on your PC and maybe a cloud service provider. With these 6 apps and God Mode 9, you have everything you need to fully unlock the capabilities of a modded 3DS. From here, there's an endless amount of games, software, new tools, and features to discover. But to simplify everything that's possible, I've boiled down my observations to 15 different aspects of 3DS modding that you should consider taking advantage of to get the most out of your system. So, let's check them out. So first off, I'd get familiar with the Rosalina menu. By default, you can open it up with the shortcut L, D-pad down, and select. Rosalina is a built-in menu that comes pre-installed with Luma that offers tons of additional tools and settings, and there's a whole lot you can do with it, so I'm just going to show you some of my favorite features. Take Screenshot is pretty self-explanatory. It captures screenshots of both screens and then places the photo onto your SD card. This is useful for capturing special moments or creating thumbnails. Screen filters gives you control of more advanced display settings by being able to alter the color temperature, contrast, and brightness of both screens. This is useful if you have a 3DS with IPS screens because there's presets included that will help to boost the colors, making content pop and look more vibrant. And yeah, for some reason, Nintendo had this weird production phase where some 3DS systems would come installed with IPS screens while others were installed with TN screens. If you want to check and see if you're one of the lucky few that have the more color vibrant IPS screens, you can check in the System Info tab. Unfortunately, I wasn't so lucky. System configuration allows you to activate or deactivate various hardware settings, like turning off the LEDs, disabling the power button, or even disabling the card slot. This is useful if you want to conserve some battery, as the card slot does passively drain power from the system. Miscellaneous Options has a cool feature I don't often see talk about, which is input redirection. Input direction is a simple program that lets you control your 3DS with any game controller that uses X input, like my 8-bit Do controller here. You have to download this companion app on your PC to get it to work, but after that, all you have to do is plug in your controller to your PC, start input redirection, and then type your 3DS IP address into the program. After that, it should automatically work. Yes, its use case is quite limiting, considering that you have controls, right there. But if you're shooting some B-roll for a 3DS video, and you don't want your grimy hands in the shot, it's great for that. And last, if you have a new 3DS model, take a look at the new 3DS menu. This is where you can take advantage of the extra processing power of the new units by enabling the enhanced clock speed and L2 cache. Depending on the game, enabling these settings can drastically reduce load times and boost frame rates. For example, in LEGO City Undercover, the load times go from 48 seconds with the clock speed and L2 cache off, all the way down to 28 seconds. Whoa. Another major performance boost is in Rayman 3D, as these settings can boost the frame rate from 20 FPS all the way to a silky smooth 60. Your results will vary though, and in some cases raising the clock speed will outright crash certain games, so do your research beforehand to determine which games might be the most compatible. The Rosalina menu is also where you can enable cheats, but this menu works in tandem with Checkpoint, so I'll discuss this more in a little bit. So you might be thinking, wow, Garrett, I mod my 3DS and you're telling me all I can do is turn off the LEDs and change the brightness and contrast settings? What a thrill. And okay, fair enough, it's not very interesting. So let me start showing you some stuff that is. This is Anemone. It's a one-stop shop for everything involving 3DS customization, and it allows you to download and install thousands of free community-made themes, badges, and splash screens. And downloading them has never been easier. Just go to the Theme Plaza website, find something you like, and hover your mouse over it, pull up the QR code scanner on your 3DS with the R button, and after scanning, that's it. Anemone will automatically download any scanned themes, and they can be easily accessed and loaded in through their menu. You can find thousands of different themes to choose from themes so polished that you'd think they were included with the system, to this. Splash screens work the same way, and these are just custom boot up images that appear when you first power up your 3DS. Just make sure first that you enable splash screens from Luma. To enable them, press the power button while holding select to pull up the Luma configuration menu, and then set the splash screen setting to B4. And once you're back inside Anemone, you can find your splash screens by pressing the L button. As for badges, once they're downloaded from Theme Plaza, you can install these by pressing X to open the extra menu, and then press right on the D-pad to install them. Just for reference, you can install up to 1,000 badges on your system, and if you want to, you can even create custom badges since a badge is simply just a 64 by 64 PNG image. For more information about creating badges, including making badge sets and custom images for those sets, I'll leave a more detailed explanation on badges in the description. Now, we're going to start getting into the weeds of Homebrew, and to simplify all of the Homebrew that's out there, I'm going to take all of my favorite Homebrew and put them into different categories, starting with Enhancement Homebrew. For this category, I'm referring to any Homebrew that, well, enhances or adds on to the 3DS's current capabilities, like Fastcoin. Fastcoin is an easy way to max out your play coins. If you're not in the mood for furiously shaking your handheld, just one A press of this app will generate 300 play coins in a matter of seconds. And this is great for any games that take advantage of play coins, like in Animal Crossing New Leaf. Finally, I can complete my fortune cookie collection. 3DS Media Player lets you play any MP4 files as long as they're 480p resolution or lower. If you like finding inconvenient ways to watch your favorite content, I'd highly recommend it. What? FourthTube is a YouTube app for 3DS. This app lets you navigate the entire site, and you can even subscribe to your favorite YouTube channels. NetPass is a no-brainer at this point. This allows your 3DS to connect to the internet to collect street passes. You choose from a set of fictional locations, which are just different custom servers. Then for the next 10 hours, anyone who connects to that same location will exchange street pass data with you. This is perfect for those who are still looking to play through all the Street Pass games, or to take advantage of the Street Pass features in select 3DS games and software. One unique app I would recommend trying with NetPass is SwapNote. Since SwapNote can send out drawings via Street Pass, if you connect to NetPass, there's a chance you might actually receive a drawing back. Let's say you wanted to revive some of the online capabilities of the 3DS. Maybe play some online matches of your favorite games with 3DS users in real time, or browse through some old 3DS web pages. Well, the modding scene has got you covered. Pretendo is a free replacement for Nintendo's Online that strives to completely restore online functionality for every game and piece of software on the 3DS and Wii U. The developers have made some incredible progress in the last couple of years, and they've already revived the majority of matchmaking features for most of the 3DS's major titles. This means you can still hop on a match of Light vs. Dark and Kid Icarus Uprising today.
Hey.
And there's plenty of players. I played online in Kid Icarus on a random Thursday, and there were still enough people to get a match going. Let's just say that Pretendo servers probably have higher player counts than most live service games that are being released today, so I think you'll find people. Restoring online access couldn't be simpler enough. All you have to do is go to Pretendo's website and make an account, create a new Me to go with your Pretendo account, then go onto your Nintendo Network ID settings on your 3DS, type in your new Pretendo username and password, and you're connected to their custom servers. Pretendo isn't just working to bring back online functionality in games, however, they've also revived Miiverse through their own version called Juxtaposition. This plans to bring back the full functionality of the service, Yaz and all. Finally, we can all leave X and return to the superior social media network. There's also Satelazone, a service that brings back Nintendo Zone. It lets you look at online archives from various locations like Best Buy, AT&T, McDonald's, and more. It provides all the original information, including games, pictures, and even videos, all from when Nintendo Zone was originally active. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like every page could be archived, like certain trivia games.
Are you a true gamer? I'll never know if I'm a true gamer.
But Satelazone has its own section of content where you can get info on 3DS games, watch episodes of Pokemon, play a drawing mode that only gives you 60 seconds to draw for some reason.
Wahoo.
And browse something called the OldNet, which is a collection of archived web pages dating back to the late 90s.
Apple announced a new version of the GeoPort telecom adapter kit, increasing modem speed to 28.8 kilobits? Let's go, dude! Oh, this is a huge day.
Well, after reading about the hottest new tech, you can indulge in a variety of homebrew games that modders have managed to port over to the 3DS. These include games like Sonic CD, Quake 2, Half-Life, a 60 FPS port of Mario 64 with 360-degree camera control and stereoscopic 3D support, and Vice City?
Good. People will remember soon enough. When they see him walking down the streets of their neighborhoods, it will be bad for business. Well?
Yeah, it takes a whole feature-length film to load and runs like a slideshow, but you can play it. Kind of.
Oh, no. I got 3 minutes of game time.
You can download a large majority of these ports off of Universal Updater, but most of the time, these downloads will require you to source the actual game files yourself, because if they just handed you the game files, that would be considered yo-ho-ho, me hearties, you know what I'm saying? So how do you source these files? Well, it varies depending on the game. For example, Sonic CD just requests the data.rsdk file off of any PC or mobile copy of the game. So in my case, I just opened up Steam, clicked on Game Files, found the data file, and copied it over to the correct spot on my microSD card. For any ports, you'll end up following a pretty similar process. There's quite a few PC games ported over to the 3DS, and if you want a more comprehensive view of all of them, I'll include a good resource in the description. And although these games may not be as interesting, there are free homebrew games that you can download that don't require any additional files. There's some more simple games here like Super Hexagon, which is a 3DS clone of, you guessed it, Super Hexagon. Creative name, I know. There's Cat Mario, you know, that Mario Rage game that every YouTuber played like 12 years ago.
What?
And don't worry, before you ask, yes, you can play the Google Chrome offline T-Rex game. But if the prospect of playing the Google Chrome offline Dino game just isn't enticing enough for you, you can always look into enhancing your current 3DS games with ROM hacks. ROM hacks are modified copies of pre-existing games that have had their code altered, usually with the goal of adding new features or making completely new games from the ground up. In other words, there's all new game experiences for you to try out for free on your 3DS, and there's a good chance you already own most of these games, since the most common ROM hacks are made for the most popular 3DS titles. CTGP7 is a ROM hack for Mario Kart 7, which includes a wide array of new content, features, and enhancements. There's all new custom-made tracks, a much wider selection of characters to choose from, all with custom animations and sound effects. New quality of life features like being able to add a speedometer, and even enable the 3DS LEDs to flash blue when a blue shell comes your way. The greatest part of all of this is that you can still play online on custom servers with all of these custom courses and characters. I'd highly recommend this if you're a Mario Kart fan because it adds so much more content to the base game. For Zelda fans, there's a 3DS Ocarina of Time randomizer that lets you randomize hundreds of different parameters within the game. It scrambles the locations of various items throughout Hyrule like maps, keys, weapons, abilities, ocarina songs, and much more. This allows for almost a rogue-like experience where every run has you finding a different set of items that force you to switch up your game strategy.
What? You can do that?
If the amount of customization options seem overwhelming, there's some randomizer presets that you can choose from. And if you enjoy suffering, you can enable Chaos Mode, which starts Link with 1 heart and shuffles everything in the game, including entrances.
This is going to take me to, like, Ganon's castle. Oh my god! Close enough. Oh my god.
Animal Crossing Welcome Luxury is a ROM hack of New Leaf that's described as an Animal Crossing that is only for the riches and high-class people. It features modifications and enhancements to eliminate just about every inconvenience in the base game. Fish always bite on the first try, flowers never wilt, stores are open 24/7, town fruits are equal to foreign fruits, and the buy price is the same value as the sell price for every item in the game. Is it completely overkill and unrealistic? Sure. But then again, you're already playing a game where you live with talking animals in a village, so... But let's say that ROM hacks just aren't enough for your tastes. You want more control over your games, more power, complete domination. Alright then, you power-hungry freak, let's talk about save editors. A save editor is a piece of software that allows you to modify the content of a saved game, letting you make non-destructive changes to your save files. And one of these games is Animal Crossing New Leaf, which has its own save editor created by Mark Rebeldo. This editor is a powerful tool that lets you edit any New Leaf save file so you can change the locations of buildings and houses, move entire rivers, ponds, and waterfalls, add money to your bank account or any item in the game, change your villagers, or even change yourself. With this tool, you can pretty much go God mode.
No way, it actually works.
And this is the closest you'll probably get to a New Horizons level of customization in New Leaf. If you do this though, please make sure you follow the instructions to a T and pay attention to the required parameters in the Q&A section. I also want to acknowledge PKSM, which is a Pokemon save editor that lets you add and modify the data of any Pokemon of your choosing. You're able to adjust their stats, their temperaments, and even make them shiny. It also includes offline storage to store your Pokemon, has an item editor, and is fully compatible with Gens 1 through 8. It even has a legal Pokemon checker to confirm if the Pokemon you're modifying is possible to create within normal gameplay. I'll be honest, I'm a pretty new and amateur Pokemon player, so I'm not familiar with everything possible here, but it's all really impressive stuff. A good rule of thumb if you're messing with save editors is to create a save backup first. Otherwise, if you go through the save editor process incorrectly, you could corrupt your save data, and then you wouldn't have a previous save to revert back to. And if that happens, this is why it's important to back up your save data using Checkpoint. Checkpoint, as mentioned earlier, is a save manager that can create and restore backups of save files for 3DS, eShop, Virtual Console, and Nintendo DS titles. Checkpoint works with both physical and digital games, and all you have to do to make a backup is first, start up the game you want to back up at least once. This will populate the game icon in Checkpoint. From there, select the game title, press A, then press L to make a backup. This software is critical if you have any interest in messing with save editors, but it's also great for making backups in general for games that have points of no returns or when something happens that can't be undone. It's also great for transferring your game saves between modded 3DSs, as moving save backups to another system is just as easy as copy-pasting your files from one SD card to another. Checkpoint is also used to download cheat codes. Long gone are the days of having to purchase an action replay cartridge. Does anybody remember those? On Checkpoint, with any title selected, tap the cheats icon, and here you can download a list of cheats for any game you want. Once downloaded, these cheats can be enabled in the Rosalina menu under the cheats section. At the very least, I would suggest creating a save backup before you mess with cheats, just in case. Whoa! There's also 60 FPS cheats. You can try them on your 3DS, but personally I wouldn't mess with them. Oftentimes, forcing the 3DS to run games at a higher frame rate than expected will make games run faster, mess with the game's physics engine, or cause tons of crashes. These cheats are meant to be used with the 3DS emulator Citra, as it's expected you'll have way more performance on a PC to be able to run these cheats as opposed to running on 3DS hardware. So if you want to try and increase the frame rate on your 3DS hardware, stick with enabling the L2 cache and higher clock speeds instead. One unique set of cheat codes you might be interested in, though, are codes that actually enable stronger 3D depth in select 3DS games. Near the tail end of the 3DS's lifespan, Nintendo started to release more 3DS games that had weaker 3D depth or just omitted 3D altogether. This could be because previous 3DS games did deal with some pretty heavy performance dips whenever 3D was turned on, but it's most likely because many 3DS owners simply saw the 3D as a gimmick and didn't utilize the feature that often. Luckily, if you are one of those who enjoys the 3D effect, you can increase the depth in games that underutilize this feature. Thanks to this helpful blog post on GBA Temp, there's a useful read-up explaining how this is achieved, and it even offers some pre-made 3D enhancement cheat codes for some of the more popular 3DS games to try yourself. If you want, you can download a plugin called CTRPF and use the built-in hex editor to modify the 3D values manually. This guide recommends this option because when you implement the cheat, it's less prone to crashing your system, but honestly, this process is a little daunting and confusing for most people, or maybe it's just me. So for the most hassle-free option, it's much easier to just grab the values you want for a specific game on the blog, open up the games.txt file on your microSD card, and copy-paste the values there. From there, once you're in your chosen game, you can load up the cheats in Rosalina Menu and select them straight there. You might have to experiment to see which 3D option is best for you, because in some cases, you can increase the depth so far that the effect isn't even beyond comprehension anymore. Like, for most people, anything past 3D depth plus will be complete overkill for your eyes. Of course, I can't really demonstrate this on video, but just look how far the world shifts when I put the slider on max. Whoa. Alright, enough talk about 3DS games though, because a modded 3DS gives you a surprisingly wide amount of emulators to mess with. The most unique example here is Red Viper, which is a Virtual Boy emulator. The best feature of this emulator is that it can display every game in 3D just like on the original hardware. I'm surprised Nintendo never officially released these games on the eShop because they're really a perfect fit for the system. The 3D is executed perfectly here.
Whoa. Wait, that looks amazing.
There's quite a lot of customization to mess with as well, including altering the colors itself if you don't like the original red aesthetic. Considering there's a high chance you've never touched a Virtual Boy game, this is now the best way to go back and experience that software. But of course, there's also emulators for the most common retro consoles. They're standalone emulators on Universal Updater that cover the majority of most of the popular 8 and 16-bit platforms. Virtua NES for NES games and SNES 9X for Super Nintendo are both excellent picks. These two emulators have nice snappy UIs with all the common settings you'd expect in an emulator, and they both run on these systems like a charm. As for GBA games, the 3DS can run these games natively, giving you a smooth experience that's on par with playing these games on a real GBA. And the main reason for that is that the 3DS has a CPU architecture that is very similar to the Game Boy Advance. So as of right now, there's two main ways to play GBA games natively. One is through an app called OpenAGB Firm, and the other is by injecting the ROMs directly onto the 3DS home screen. OpenAGB Firm is an application you can download from Universal Updater, and it runs and reads GBA games natively off of your SD card. It can be accessed by holding down Start as you press the power button. While the software will run GBA games perfectly, you will have to boot them up from the chain loader menu instead of being able to launch them directly on the 3DS home screen. To remedy this, there is a piece of Windows software you can download called New Super Ultimate Injector. This software will let you take a GBA ROM and convert it into a CIA file. Once you boot it up, you just drag a ROM file in, it automatically fills in the game info, then you would just export it as a CIA file and place it onto your SD card. Then go to FBI, install the CIA, and there you go, GBA games running on the home screen. This software can also convert a large amount of other game ROMs into CIA files, so definitely take a look into the software if that interests you. 3DS can even run N64 and PS1 ROMs, well, at least some of them. By downloading RetroArch, you can gain access to PS1 emulation. There's an excellent post by Catskull on how to get PS1 running that I'll include below. The performance here really depends on the game. Ape Escape absolutely chugs frames hard and doesn't run at a stable frame rate at all. But games like Silent Hill and Wipeout run perfectly. There's also N64 emulation with the Dallas 64.
Oh, this looks pretty bad.
Yeah, for some reason, if you boot up the app directly after downloading it from Universal Updater, you'll just get a bunch of visual garbage. And it turns out, it's because I needed to create a ROMs folder within the software and add at least one ROM file inside. Unfortunately though, the effort to get this running is just not worth it.
What did they do to my boy?
I had games run at slower speeds, games with choppy audio, and games that would just be missing entire textures and then proceed to freeze my entire system and produce the most demonic rendition of Kirby music I've ever heard.
Whoa! Turn it off, turn it off.
And that's how N64 emulation was running on the new 3DS models, so don't even try it on the old ones, otherwise they'll probably just explode, I don't know. In addition to emulators, remember that the 3DS is fully backwards compatible with every Nintendo DS game. And yes, that's not anything new, of course, you could always do that on an unmodded 3DS, but with a modded 3DS, we can play Nintendo DS games digitally by placing Nintendo DS ROMs onto the microSD card. From there, you need an app called Twilight Menu++, which can be used to open and play your DS ROMs in a DSi-inspired menu. There could be an entire separate video on Twilight Menu and all the features it contains, but just know that this is where you can play all the DS games that you know and love. For an even more convenient experience, Nintendo DS games can also be launched directly from the 3DS home menu by using a program called NDS Forter. Keep in mind, however, that you can only have a total of 300 games and apps on the home screen at any one time. So personally, I'd only forward a select few games that I know I'm actually going to play. And as I mentioned earlier, even your own physical DS games and their saves can be dumped onto your 3DS through a built-in piece of software called God Mode 9. Here you can dump your games and then boot them up in Twilight Menu. I've included a great written guide on this whole process in the description if you're interested. So with 3DS games, DS games, emulators, ROM hacks, and homebrew games and ports, you could honestly play on this device until the end of time and still find something new to play. But for some reason, if all of those options weren't enough, remember that Luma disables region locking when you mod a 3DS, giving you access to even more games that were previously unplayable. For example, recently I've been playing through X Troopers, which is a really polished third-person action shooter with a nice cel-shaded art style. This game was developed by Capcom and was only available in Japan, but now with custom firmware, it can be played on any 3DS. Another game I tried was Terry's Wonderland, which is a remake of the original Dragon Quest monsters. This game has you collecting various creatures and then pitting them up against each other to fight for you. So basically, kind of like Pokemon, except you capture creatures like Muddy Hand and Winky. You better watch out, Game Freak. You better sleep with one eye open. But wait a minute, Garrett, why are these games running in English? You said they were Japanese imports, so why are they not in Nihongo? Well, that's because you can also download fan translations for Japanese 3DS games. Now, it's a very limited list, and the translations are mostly delegated to the major Japanese titles like the Dragon Quest games, the Great Ace Attorney games, and Puyo Puyo Tetris, but if you've ever had any interest in trying out one of these previously restricted titles in full English, now you can with a modded 3DS. Finally, to save the best feature for last, have you ever wanted to play your PC games on a 3DS? No? What do you mean no? This was all I had. This is the last thing I got. Okay, how about playing your 3DS games on a PC? Thanks to Arctic Base, it's now possible to stream your 3DS to a PC over your local network. And you might be thinking, why would I do this when I could just emulate the 3DS games on Citra without a 3DS? Well, the biggest reason is that Arctic Base syncs your save data between your 3DS and Citra, so you can play it on PC, make some progress, then disconnect and continue playing on your 3DS right where you left off. This essentially treats your 3DS like a Nintendo Switch. And since your games are running through an emulator, you can connect any game controller and, in some cases, even upscale the game's resolution without any performance loss. Now, in full transparency, there is a possibility of experiencing longer load times and stutter depending on the game, especially if your 3DS has to constantly stream in large chunks of the game to your PC. But for the most part, you'll find minigames that work really well with Arctic Base. You do need a specific version of Citra to get Arctic Base working, however, specifically Pablo MK7 Fork of Citra, which I'll include in the description below. Once you have that downloaded, it's just as easy as opening Arctic Base on your 3DS, inputting your 3DS's IP address in Citra, then once a game has been selected on your 3DS, it will automatically start streaming. If you want a new way to experience some of the 3DS classics, or if you're a YouTuber or streamer that's looking for an easy way to capture 3DS footage without buying an overpriced capture card, I would not skip this app. It's fantastic. There's an immense amount of new software and games you can run on a modded 3DS. Whether you want to try out Homebrew, go online on custom servers, play and emulate an unfathomably large amount of games from a wide selection of different systems, or play Cyberpunk on your 3DS, there's something for everyone. The 3DS modding community is stronger than ever and is continuously releasing new software and updates all the time. And with Nintendo's departure from the 3DS scene, I believe there's never been a better time to mod one. Hopefully, this video has given you at least one reason to mod your 3DS, and if you need more clarification or more detail on anything I've mentioned in this video, I've included links to just about everything I can think of in the description below, so please go check it out. With all that being said, thanks for watching, and happy modding.